Hey everyone, Mitch coming up with the Commander's Core Studio. Welcome to the show. So, on today's episode, I've got a really spicy deck tech for you. One that is really off the wall, and some might even say a bit Mad Lad inspired. Let's jump into it. First, we're going to talk about the Commander, and no, this is not your typical deck around this Commander. So the Commander for this deck is going to be Go-Shintai of Life's Origin. Now, again, typically you are going to see, well, a Shrine Tribal deck around Go-Shintai of Life's Origin, right? But with this deck tech, no, we are definitely not doing that. Now, really quick, I probably should have mentioned before already, like my other deck techs though, this is going to be a very budget-friendly deck with a price of, I believe, about $33.18. I'll double check that though before I put it over here somewhere. But yeah, basically, every single card in the deck outside of the Commander and outside of one other specific card is less than $1. We'll talk about that specific card here in a bit. But yeah, Go-Shintai of Life's Origin, around $5 itself. A 3/4 Legendary Enchantment Creature Shrine that costs 3 in a green. And it says, pay Wooburg, tap, return target enchantment card from your graveyard to the battlefield, which is going to come in huge. And it also does say, whenever it and other non-token shrine enters the battlefield under your control, you get a 1/1 colorless shrine enchantment creature token. Now that is nice, but again, this is not going to be Shrine Tribal. We really don't care all that much about that. We do care about, however, again, that activate ability, being able to bring an enchantment back from our graveyard into play, and we've got some really cool interactions with that. And of course, we've got a really important enchantment for this deck that we want to get out. And usually I don't jump right into the Golden Pig on an episode, but you know what? Tactic number 1, it's going to be the Golden Pig. And the Golden Pig for this deck, the number 1 card 99, is Hive Mind. That's right, this is going to be a Hive Mind deck built around, well, Go-Shintai, built around Hive Mind. A very, very, well, interesting and very specific and unique card. Here we go. So Hive Mind, again, this is a $6 card, and yeah, I broke the budget on that part of it because, yeah, usually, again, less than $1 per each card, but it is worth it for this deck. Hive Mind is an enchantment for 5 and a blue. Whenever a player casts an instant or sorcery spell, each other player copies that spell. Each of those players may choose new targets for their copy. So basically, hey, we're all going to be playing the exact same thing. We all have to play the exact same thing. If I am playing an instant or a sorcery, you get to play that. And the same applies to every other player out there. So yeah, if every single player is going to be playing spells, we all have to play the exact same one when it comes to instant sorceries. So we're basically all just sharing, right? Now, of course, again, this is a very strange card. One that really didn't see all that much play because, well, in a game of Commander, typically this could be pretty bad for you. If you start casting a bunch of instants and sorceries, your opponents are going to get a lot of benefits off of that. Yeah, you'll get benefits off of theirs, but this is going to be a deck that is built around, well, okay, this card, again, I said is the Golden Pig, right? But I'm going to do this. Here we go. Tactic number 2. I'm going to call this one the Golden Piglet because basically we have another card for this deck that is incredibly impactful, incredibly important, and it works in combination with Hive Mind. It is going to be Pact of the Titan. Now, technically, any of the packs could work here. I mean, most of the packs could work here. This is the one that is budget-friendly, though, less than $1. So this is the one that I included. So Pact of the Titan is an instant for 0 mana. It says, create a 4/4 red giant creature token. Cool. I mean, that's just interesting. But the part that we care about is the beginning of your next the beginning of your next upkeep, pay 4 in a red. If you don't, you lose the game. So, yeah, trading a 4/4 for potentially losing the game, yeah, not exactly worth it in a lot of situations, but for this deck, it very much is, again, because we have Hive Mind. Once we get Hive Mind out, our goal is to cast this, and potentially to cast it more than once to ensure that our opponents can't pay for that upkeep trigger. I mean, if our opponents don't have any red mana, they can't pay for it anyways, right? But, if we cast this at least twice, chances are very likely that our opponents won't be able to spend 10 mana, 2 of it being red, to actually keep themselves from losing the game. And again, if we are casting this, on our turn, we are going to be having every one of our opponents cast it then, and again, it's going to be their upkeep triggers that take them out of the game. So even if we, for some reason, couldn't pay it, it doesn't matter. As long as our opponents can't pay it first, they lose before we lose. So yeah, this is a Hive Mind Pact deck built around Go-Shintai, and again, Yeah, not your typical Go-Shintai deck. Go-Shintai decks typically are, again, our Shrine Tribal. This one is going to be, hey, maybe we could get Hive Mind back out of the graveyard if we need to. But yeah, let's jump into the meat of the deck. Let's start off with the ramp package. You know, when it comes to tactic number 3, we're going to jump into ramp. And of course, first up, there's Wayfarer's Bauble. What else, right? Pay 2, tap, sacrifice, go get a basic land into play, tapped. Of course, we've got plenty of other great ramp. Again, Edge of Autumn, basically a rampant growth. As long as we've got 4 or fewer lands, can cycle it away by sacrificing land if we need to. Rampant growth. Your typical, you know, ramp spell. Rampant growth. 2 mana, go get a basic into play, tapped. Secure Tribe Elder. Steve! Sorry, Steve. We're going to be sacrificing you to go get that basic as well. Cultivate, go get 2 basics. 1 goes in our hand, 1 goes into play, tapped. Grow from the Ashes. If you kick it, you get 2 basics into play, untapped. If you don't, you get 1 to play, untapped. Regardless, a great ramp spell. Harrow, a great ramp spell as well. Sacrifice 1 land, go get 2 basics into play, untapped. Roiling Regrowth. Very similar, except for you're sacrificing the land, you're getting 2 basics into play, tapped. Whereas Harrow, again, is untapped. Search for Tomorrow. A great turn 1 ramp spell, potentially. Pay a single green mana, suspend it 2, and yeah, go get a basic into play untapped. Again, a great way to start things off. Spring Bloom Druid, kind of like a Harrow, or more like a Roiling Regrowth on a body. Entering the battlefield, sacrificing a land, getting 2 basics into play, tapped. Migration Path, let's go get those 2 basics, but let's get them into play tapped. We're going to get both of them into play tapped, not sacrificing any lands for 4 mana. A great ramp spell as well, or you can cycle it away if you need to. Fastwood Surge, hey, if you really need to kick it, you can get counters on your creatures. That could be a desperate situation when your deck, you know, isn't really built around making a ton of creatures. That being said, if you got the extra mana, you just need to do that, you can. But yeah, basically a, you know, explosive vegetation, basically a migration path, essentially. Go get 2 basics into play tapped, and then Verdict Mastery. Go get even more. This one is kind of strange because typically we're going to spend just 4 mana for this, depending on the situation. Go get 4 basics, essentially. 2 come into play under our control tapped. 1 will go into play under opponent's control tapped if we only paid the 3 in a green for this. And then another basic goes into our hand. If we paid the entire mana for it, those other 2 basics will go into our hand. Our opponent will get anything, essentially. So yeah, again, we've got plenty of ways to ramp very efficiently and effectively. We want to have a lot of mana so that we can have a, well, a surprising potential turn out of nowhere to do that, you know, Pact Hive Mind combo. Or we want to, you know, also be able to utilize cards to go get those pieces very quickly. Speaking of which, now let's move on to our next tactic, and we're going to be talking about tutors. And we're going to start off with a very interesting and surprising one with Sun Forger. Now, typically you see this in, you know, Voltron decks. This is definitely not a Voltron deck. Equip creature gets +4/+0. You can also pay a red and white to unattach it and search your library for a red or white instant card with converted mana cost 4 or less. Cast out paying its mana cost, shuffle your library. So yeah, essentially we are going to be going and getting, you guessed it, well, the vast majority of the time, again, Pact. We can go get our Pact, we can cast it. It does cost, obviously, 4 or less. It costs 0. So this can be, you know, a way to essentially just go get that combo piece and cast it right away. Now, of course, we've got other tutors that can go get either one of our pieces as well. Diabolic Tutor, very simple, 4 mana tutor. Go get, you know, Hive Mind, go get, you know, your Pact. Or, you know, we've got some spells to actually kind of help protect or ensure that, again, we can cast Pact again. We'll talk about those here in a bit. Mythos of Brokos, a flexible card. If you spend blue and black when you're casting this spell, you search a library for a card, put it in your graveyard, then shuffle, and you can also return up to 2 permanent cards from your graveyard to your hand, so it can help in multiple ways. Again, getting our actual, you know, getting Hive Mind into our graveyard can actually be a very good thing for us. We can actually just go get that into our graveyard. We can then have our commander get it back into play. We can also do the exact same thing with Pact, actually, because we've got ways to get that out of our graveyard, too. We'll talk about those here in a bit. Bring to Light, a very interesting tutor indeed. What we're going to be doing is we're going to search our library for a creature, instant or sorcery card, mana value less than equal to the number of colors of mana spent to cast the spell, and we exile it, and we can cast that spell at paying its mana cost. Essentially, I mean, it really doesn't matter what kind of mana we actually use for this when it comes to actually just casting it, if we are going to be going and getting Pact, again, because Pact has a mana value of 0, so we can actually just go get that. This also can go get another tutor if we need to, so you can actually just kind of cast this to go get, you know, Diabolic Tutor to go get the, you know, Hive Mind. You can kind of go from one tutor to the next if you really need to with something like this. This can also just be a very flexible card depending on the situation that we're in. Sunforger really can as well. I mean, all these can essentially. If you need something else, you can go get that other piece that you need, maybe for protection, maybe removal, whatever you need for the situation that you're in. Diabolic Revelation, speaking of whatever you need. Again, we've got a ton of ways to ramp with this deck, a ton of ways to generate a ton of mana. And yeah, put it into base list X, you know, tutor spell to go get as many cards as you need for your combo, to set yourself up, to protect your combo, etc., etc. Illicit Shipment, we can actually get 2 cards with this as well. If we sacrifice a creature with power 3 or greater, that could be our commander if we need to. So yeah, go get 2 things for the price of 1. Speaking of which, increasing ambition. Hey, we're going to search a lot for a card, get into our hand, and if we actually cast this from our graveyard, which of course it has flashback, we can go get 2 cards instead. And yeah, we do have ways to get cards directly into our graveyard as well. Some discard effects as well that we'll talk about here in a bit. So yeah, we might not even have to cast this twice essentially to get the double value out of it. Grazcast Right, a flexible tutor. Hey, go get a card, or you can cycle it away if you don't need to. And then Netherborn Phalanx. This is a 6-mana creature that does have some application potentially. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life for each creature they control. So this could be a finisher potentially. You know, if you're going to play, say, token deck and they've got an absurd amount of tokens, you just play this and you're like, oh, okay, you lose. But more likely, we're going to be using this for the transmute effect. Pay 1 black, discard it. Go get any card in our library that costs 6, exactly 6 mana, which, yeah, that would be Hive Mind. We're going to go get Hive Mind with this. Now, moving on to the next tactic, though, we're going to be talking about ways to get Hive Mind or other things potentially directly into our graveyard. And that's basically all these cards are going to be doing. So kind of like Mythos of Brokos, but without kind of that added flexibility of, getting things back out of our graveyard as well. So first up, we've got Auric Lore Mage. Tap, go get any card in your library directly into your graveyard. Again, this can be a way to help us out multiple times. We can actually go get, again, Hive Mind maybe first. We can go get Pact maybe next. And then we can actually have other ways to get them back out of our graveyard if we need to. Again, whether that's our commander with Hive Mind, or whether that's, another spell we'll talk about here in a bit to get Pact out of our graveyard back into our hand. Violent Tumor, basically the exact same thing, but not repeatable. On ETB, go get any card out of your library into your graveyard. Again, can help out in a lot of situations. Same thing with Gravebreaker Lamia. Hey, ETB, go get any card out of your library, put it in your graveyard, and if you're also casting spells from your graveyard, they're going to cost 1 less to cast. This can affect, flashback cards, again, like increasing ambition. We've got another one to talk about here in a bit. But yeah, basically, hey, go tutor up a card, get it in your graveyard. So yeah, we're running a lot of tutors with this deck to get our key pieces, again, either into our hand or into our graveyard. And speaking of our graveyard, now let's move on to the next tactic. We've got plenty of ways to get cards out of our graveyard. Again, we got our commander to actually, get Hive Mind out of our graveyard if we need to with that. Or we've got ways to, again, get cards out of our graveyard and back into our hand, like, getting Pact back into our hand so we can cast again and again and again. Again, keep in mind that by casting Pact multiple times, it's going to make it more and more difficult, if not impossible, for our opponents to actually pay those upkeep triggers for them to, not lose the game. So, Wildest Dreams, a great recursion spell. We're going to return Exarch cards from our graveyard to our hand, and we exile this. Again, we've got a ton of ways to ramp, a ton of ways to make a bunch of mana. So yeah, we can go get a lot of cards back with this. Flood of Recollection. Get an instant sorcery back from your graveyard to your hand for just 2 mana. This is fantastic. Again, just cast Pact for 0 mana, right? With Hive Mind in play. Pay 2 mana, get it back from your graveyard, get it back in your hand, recast it. I mean, you're essentially just making it just incredibly easy for yourself to actually take your opponents out with something like this. Regrowth, again, great card. Go get any card out of your graveyard, back in your hand for just 2 mana. Speaking of which, Treasured Find, basically the exact same thing. This one, like Flood Recollection, though, does actually exile itself too, but still. Yeah, we've got plenty of other ways to get things back out of our graveyard. Vohair Vidalian Desecrator. This one actually can be a looting effect for us. Tap, draw a card, discard a card. If you discard an instant sorcery card, each opponent drains 1. Cool. That's nice. That's not really the purpose of this. The purpose of this, though, is pay 2, sacrifice it, cast an sorcery card from a graveyard this turn. Now, this is kind of a not heavier risk play, I guess I should say, but when we do cast that spell, we exile it. So if we know we just need to cast the Pact 1 more time, sure, do this. Okay, go get Pact back. Recast it essentially just for 2 mana, essentially just sacrificing this, right? So most of the time that will work, or this can go get you back another recursion spell if you really need to go get that if you're more worried about actually exiling your Pact. So yeah, keep that in mind. Call to Mind, 3 mana, go get an instant sorcery back from your graveyard. Again, I should mention that earlier on in the game, you can actually utilize these, maybe to help get more ramp spells back if you need to ramp further, or ways to dig deeper in your deck, or ways to tutor again. These can be very flexible for you and help out in a lot of situations. Maestro's Ascendancy, this card is great in this deck. Once or each of your turns, you may cast an instant sorcery spell from your graveyard by sacrificing a creature and paying its other cost. Base spell cast away, put in your graveyard, exile it instead. So again, basically a free way to recast a spell from our graveyard. We can sacrifice the token our commander makes. We can sacrifice our commander. We can do whatever we need to do to, again, recast Pact or whatever we need to recast with this. Night Charm, a very flexible spell. Hey, 3 damage target creature. That can be a great way to take out a small creature, even a very important creature an opponent might have. We can bounce. We can return a card from a graveyard back to its owner's hand. So again, a great way to recur a spell from our own graveyard, or a great way to hate on an opponent's graveyard. Again, if they've got a reanimation effect that might be very big, we can say, that creature that you're going to reanimate, no longer. It's going to your hand instead. Or we can tap down all creatures target player controls. So this can be a great way to save ourselves, in combat, or a way to help another opponent get through on another opponent. We can make deals with this as well. Recollect, basically more expensive regrowth, but one that is still effective. Again, 3 mana. Go get any card from your graveyard back to your hand. Cast Dissident Mage, basically a Maestro's Ascendancy on a creature. I mean, this is the OG one, essentially. During each of your turns, you may cast in sorcery from your graveyard, and if you cast it that way, you exile it instead. So this one, you do not have to sacrifice a creature to actually get that benefit. But yeah, again, a repeatable way to get value out of instant sorceries, and again, a way to ensure that we can cast our Pact multiple times if we need to. Past in Flames, another way to do so as well, basically giving all of our instant sorceries on our graveyard flashback. We can also flash this back too. So again, a way to get a lot of extra value out of instant sorceries as we're going throughout the game, and then just ultimately a way to finish our opponents off by casting Pact twice. Now when it comes to actually, making sure that this goes off that we actually can, finish out the game and that we can actually do what we want to do. Let's talk about some ways to protect this combo and to protect ourselves and just protect just what we're doing, essentially. We're going to start things off with Autumn's Veil, a very interesting card. Spells you control can't be countered by blue or black spells this turn, and creatures you control can't be the targets of blue or black spells this turn. A very interesting card for this deck, because if we actually cast this out when Hive Mind is in play, this can actually be very beneficial for us. So we cast, this with Hive Mind in play, and our opponents all of a sudden can't counter not only our spells, but they can't counter any of their spells. They can't counter their own spells even if they want to. So yeah, let's say, we did our, Pact essentially. There would be opportunities for opponents to actually counter their own, Pact that they're casting so that they're not going to lose the game. But this makes it so that, hey, if you're trying to counter with a blue or black spell, it's not going to happen. So yeah, it can definitely be an interesting and kind of funny way to go about that. In a somewhat similar way, we've got a card called Bound and Determined. Determined's the side I care about right now. Other spells you control can't be countered by spells or abilities this turn. Draw a card. So again, having every single player cast this means that your spells can't be countered. Sure, we give them an extra bit of counter card advantage as well, but we're ensuring that those packs are going to be going through. Also, we've got ways to protect our Hive Mind or our commander if we really need to when it comes to setting ourselves up to get Hive Mind out of our graveyard potentially. Blacksmith skill, target permanent gains hexproof and destructible until end of turn. Also has something about an artifact creature, don't worry about that for this deck. Lauren's Escape, basically the exact same thing. Target artifact or creature gains hexproof and destructible until end of turn. Scry 1, a great way to protect our key piece, again, most likely Hive Mind for us, to ensure that it stays in play. And then also another way to kind of ensure that we can also finish opponents off potentially might be a card like Exhaustion. So again, if there is a player that does have some, a good amount of mana, or, some red sources in play, essentially, cast Exhaustion. Creatures and lands target opponent controls do not untap during their next untap phase. Ensure that they cannot untap, so that they cannot pay, most likely for the packs that we're going to be casting. Again, we easily, once we're set properly, can cast Pact 1, 2, 3, maybe even 4 times in a turn to ensure that our opponents definitely can't do it, but this is just another additional way to, either throw a wrench in opponent's plans early, or again, to ensure that that player cannot pay for the Pact. Now, next up, though, we're going to be moving on and talking about some card advantage, card selection, ways to actually dig deeper into our deck with our next tactic. A Called Epiphany is a good one. Draw X cards, discard X cards, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying for each card type. 1 card discard this way. Just making a nice little army can be very helpful for us, just actually kind of stalling things out, kind of, being able to just chump block if we need to. But yeah, being able to dig deeper into our deck. Again, we've got a good amount of mana that we can, pump into that X most of the time, and just dig deep into our deck, ditch the cards that we need to ditch. Again, there's certain cards that actually want to be in our graveyard, potentially even Hive Mind, so we can actually set ourselves up with our commander's ability. Or, yeah, just digging deeper to get those exact cards that we need. Maybe getting into Pact, maybe getting into, again, a tutor that can go get us one of the cards that we need. So, yeah, just a great way to dig deeper. Speaking of which, read the runes. Hey, draw X cards, freeze card, drawn this way, discard a card, unless you sacrifice a permanent. Again, sometimes discarding cards with this deck is not a bad thing. And of course, there are still times where we're able to sacrifice permanents to keep more. Again, we've got plenty of ways to get a lot of lands into play. Again, even a Cold Epiphany makes those creature tokens. We can actually utilize those to sacrifice those to keep some more cards in our play hand if we need to. Pull from Morrow, no sacrificing needed here. Just draw X cards, discard one of those cards. And yeah, again, plenty of ways to just put a ton of mana into that X to ensure that we can dig really deep into our deck. Stroke of Genius. Again, very similarly, hey, target player draws X cards. Painful Truths, basically it's going to be 3 mana different colors is usually how we're going to cast this. Draw 3, lose 3, well worth it in this kind of a deck. Speaking of 3 mana, Frantic Search, I am very happy this one was reprinted in his budget again. Draw 2, discard 2, untap the 3 lands. Basically a free, looting effect essentially. And again, there are going to be times where we actually want cards in our graveyard. Next up, we've got Eureka Moment. Eureka Moment is a great card for this deck. Draw 2, put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield at instant speed. So yeah, again, another way to dig deeper into our deck and also ramp us further. In a somewhat similar way, we've got Urban Evolution. Draw 3, you can play an extra land this turn. Great, cool. Again, dig deeper into your deck, ramp. Factor Fiction, just a great draw spell, essentially. Not really a draw spell, I guess. Technically, it's not drawing, but card advantage spell. An opponent is going to, pick, some piles off the top of your library, essentially off the top 5 cards. One goes in your hand, one goes in your graveyard again. There are certain times where you might want certain cards in your graveyard again, like Hive Mind. So yeah, definitely a great card. Moving on though, now let's talk about removal. Ways to throw a wrench into our opponent's plans as well. We're going to start things off with Alchemist Retrieval, a great flexible card. Hey, 1 mana, bounce one of your own permanents. This can be really handy, if you actually need to bounce like a Hive Mind to protect it. Or 2 mana, bounce an opponent's non-land permanent. Displacement Wave, we can bounce a lot of things with this. Again, we're not really going to be committing to the board a ton. So yeah, we can just bounce basically everything that we need to. Hey, put as much into that X that you need to. Bounce all non-land permanents that cost X or less back to their hands. Geist Wave, a very flexible card as well. Hey, bounce an opponent's non-land permanent back to their hand. Cool, 2 mana. If you do the exact same thing to one of yours, again, maybe to save a Hive Mind, hey, draw a card as well. Some nice additional card advantage on that. Dire Strain Rampage, a great card too. Short an artifact or enchantment or land. Basically replace it with a basic land, and if you destroy a land this way, it's gonna be with 2 lands instead. So yeah, we can actually target one of our own things if we need to with this to actually ramp. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Dismantling Wave, a great way to wipe out a lot of our opponent's things. For each opponent, we destroy up to 1 target artifact or enchantment they control, and if we cycle it, we get rid of all artifacts and enchantments. So this can be a great panic button for us as well. Oblation, a great way to shuffle a non-land permanent back into one's library, or actually anyone's library. So yeah, if we can target one of our own things, if we really need to, again, if someone's trying to destroy Hive Mind or exile it, we can shuffle it back into our library. We've got other ways to tutor it out. And yeah, we also get to draw 2 cards when we do so. So yeah, basically either removal spell that we can, replace, their, permanent with a, 2 cards, or we can do it to our own to protect our own and also draw. We got Crush Contraband then. Just exile, artifact, enchantment. Great. Just good value right there. Aether Gale, again, speaking of efficient. Hey, 5 mana, bounce 6 non-land permanents. This can be great, help out in a lot of situations. Austere Command, incredibly flexible. Pick the 2 that you want, okay? Get rid of artifacts, enchantments, small creatures, big creatures, whatever you need for the situation that you are in. Or, just reset someone entirely. Use a River's Rebuke to set someone back to the Stone Age. Bounce every single non-land permanent and opponent controls back to their hands. So this can really slow one player down. Again, this can also get you some, brownie points with your other opponents as well. If that one player is really problematic and they're way ahead of everyone else, don't worry, everyone else. I'm not threatening at all. Let me slow them down. So yeah, definitely a great way to go about it. Next up, though, let's talk about really quick just some lands I want to highlight. Of course, with a 5-color mana package, we've got a lot of ways, like Evolving Wilds, Silver expands those to, essentially, fix our mana. But we also, of course, have some lands that will ramp as well. Again, getting a lot of mana, into, those X spells that we have, being able to tutor quicker, be able to do, our, Pact again and again and again on the same turn. Getting more and more lands into play can be great. So yeah, Blighted Woodland, a great way to ramp. Crow's Verge and Mirror Landscape, all great ways to ramp, just from having lands. So yeah, these can be great for us as well. But yeah, that is the entire deck. That is all the non-lands. That is the lands as well. Again, a very budget-friendly deck, a very off-the-wall deck, one that your opponent's probably not going to see coming because, yeah, when they see Go-Shintai, they're probably like, oh yeah, enchantment, shrines, cool, I know what to expect of this. And then you can be like, oh, gosh, I don't know why I'm missing all my, shrines and not getting any right now. And then all of a sudden, yeah, Hive Mind, all of a sudden Pact again and again and again. So yeah, you can have some really spicy plays with this one. Can really come out of nowhere, surprise your opponents, and yeah, take them out in an unexpected way. So yeah, let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are on this one. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you are interested in this deck, make sure you check out that deck list link in the description below. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.